Hey guys, this is the third video Intercompany. I felt like we needed to kind of iron out the last pieces. There are things like what happens if if you don't have the item on the other side. Does it throw an error or not? What happens if you have a GL account and GL to GL? Do we have some mappings? Things like that. So. Final video on Intercompany, but it's not that hard, right? After you've gone through it, it's pretty simple. So enjoy. Hello, and we're going to keep going on the intercompany transactions. I covered before setting up the intercompany partners and also posting through sales orders, purchase orders. But what about journals? If I go into intercompany here, and take a look at the options I have something called Intercompany Chart of Accounts. And if I go into that, I've actually set up petty cash to be one account that we work with in the Intercompany Chart of Accounts. And I say that the petty cash account maps to my GL account, which is the same number. So I'm just mapping it together. Now what I could do is actually click on process and copy from my chart of accounts the entire chart of accounts into this intercompany chart of accounts. So I know this is getting kind of complicated, but basically every single company will have a copy of the intercompany chart of accounts, which is a chart of accounts you can set up any way you want. However, it makes most sense to just copy your existing chart of account into here or generate a few accounts that you use. If in some weird reason you actually use different numbers in different companies, this becomes really handy because you can map between those numbers. So, but I'm going to go ahead and just use petty cash and then go ahead and create a journal entry. So I go into my intercompany general journal right here. So intercompany transactions happen inside a specific journal for intercompany. So if I go in here, I have a document number ABC2346. I'm gonna pick a transaction. So what I want to do is move some money from the petty cash account to the other petty cash account, right? So I'm going to just click on petty cash here and I'd say that we paid $500 out of petty cash, but I need to connect this to a intercompany entity in order to do this. So I have to go ahead and say this is for my Kronos USA. So I am right now in Kronos EU, and we are paying to Kronos USA. So moving from the petty cash in Kronos EU to the petty cash in Kronos USA. Now, I have to go through the customer card in order to do this. So that's why I'm selecting a customer here. And on top of that, I have to specify which account that is on the intercompany side. So in this case, it's going to be the same. And this is coming from the intercompany chart of accounts. So I'll click that like so. And now I can go ahead and post this. I'm just going to post. Yes. And the posting lines were successfully posted. Okay. So if I go into the Kronos database right here, Kronos USA, I can go ahead and travel into the inbound transactions. So just do like this, intercompany, intercompany inbound transactions or inbox transactions. And this very similar to the way we did it before when we had a purchase order, sales order scenario. We get a journal entry in here and we have to take actions on this journal entry. and I can go ahead and take a look at the details of this journal entry. So this is going to post on the vendor, because we came from the customer side in the EU and it becomes the vendor in the USA company. And it's going to post for vendor and then straight into petty cash. So it's going to increase petty cash, but you create a balance on the vendor for negative 500 and on the customer for positive 500. So I'm going to go ahead and post this and just hit accept. So when I do that, instead of it creating the journal entry immediately, it wants to know where you want to put it, in which journal. And you will have to pick a general journal template that's intercompany in here. And if you're using Kronos USA, that does not exist out of the box. You will actually have to go into general journal templates and create an intercompany template. But it's very easy. You just add intercompany and you select that it's a type intercompany, and that's it. So in this case, I have done that, and I have the default batch. I can replace the posting date if I wanted to, and then just go ahead and hit OK, and now it's processed. Then I go into my intercompany journal. This is a little bit convoluted, but if you're doing loads and loads of transactions, this of course is very helpful, and you can push things along. And you can automate some of this with some automation functions. So here we have the transaction. It's on vendor, $500 to petty cash for 500. And if I'm okay with this, I can just go ahead and hit post and post it out. So now I have posted my petty cash into petty cash. so if I go into petty cash account, I can see that the transaction is right here. So I transferred the petty cash over. And we of course created a balance on the accounts receivable and accounts payable respectively in the companies. Now just a little bit more on intercompany. So I mentioned this before. If we are posting through the partners, and so here for example I have Kronos EU, and things don't match out, especially like with the item numbers. So here, this option, and it's important to note this option gives you the ability to map the items differently. So internal number just means that you are actually going to have the same number in Kronos EU as Kronos USA. Now, I think the cross-reference is actually very nice, because in cross-reference, if you don't have the same item numbers across your companies, you can use cross-reference and set up the vendor number inside the cross-reference. And we do have a video on cross-reference, so you can take a look at that. But there you can specify what the vendor calls it and what the customer calls it. So that's a very nice one. And that is how you work with journals, and a little bit about mapping out items. And I think the rest, I mean, you can actually map out dimensions as well. So the dimensions get mapped to a certain dimension by default, which is very nice. There's a couple of other mapping options within the intercompany. It's obviously not extremely automatic. You have to go through this inbox outbox thing, but that's done for a reason, because there could be new accounts set up, for example, in one company that not set up in the other one, and then that would be an issue, or an item set up in one and not set up in the other, and they don't have anywhere to go. So it doesn't stop from one entity, but it stops on the other entity in the inbox per se. And that was it. Thanks.